Welcome to Nightmare Nate's Nighttime Showcase.
Hey guys, this is Nightmare Nate, and I was thinking about making a top 5 list about my favorite found footage horror movies, but I figured that a tier list might be a little bit more interesting and fun. I found this one online, but I did have to make a few edits because I felt like they were missing a couple. So let's get into it. Okay, first up, as above, so below. Now, in the community, I feel like there's two different opinions. A lot of people say it's like, probably up here or something, and other people are like, yeah, it's not too interesting. But for me personally, I fall kind of in that category. I don't think it's like trash. I would consider trash, the really low budget stuff that's like extremely poorly made with really bad CGI and really bad storytelling. I don't think that's this. But I do believe that it's nothing spectacular. I know I have friends who say this is their favorite found footage horror movie. But I also think that they hold that opinion because they're not as well versed into the format and they've only watched a couple. Didn't blow my socks off. It's alright. It's about archaeologists that are trying to find the Philosopher's Stone. So they got to go to Paris and it's a real life place. These catacombs, these tunnels that live underneath the Paris, and they encounter some things down there. Next up, we have Descent. Now, I would put Descent into the... Again, I would say most people would probably put it up here. It all depends on your preference. I do like a creature feature. I do think this movie is scary. But I would say it's probably good and average. I don't think it's up here. I might feel inclined to put it up here later. But it's a good movie. And I also want to state that I'm not going to be doing the sequels. I think the only series that deserves to have its sequels shown are the VHS ones, because those movies are so different based on the shorts in them. But I think for the most part, sequels are always going to be worse than the original, and everything that you can say about the sequel, the first one, is probably true about the first one. The first one probably did it better. So, very rare cases where the sequel is better than the original. I don't even think there's a point in ranking them. But yeah, I would put it here. Same deal as Above, So Below, but I think it does it 10 times better. Like the concept of going into a dark, scary place 10 times better. And I think the story is, there's more of a story in this, and you could say it's like deeper. But I think at the end of the day, it's not really that deep. And if they just did what The Descent did and just focused on the, in the moment, because there really isn't much of a story. It's about like pretty much. They get there to the. It's about a group of 4, I think, female friends who go they're like one of those people that enjoy cliff diving and stuff, and they go underground and meet some bat creatures. But it pretty much gets right into it. There's no it doesn't waste your time, and it's effective. Next up, we got the original Paranormal Activity. I would also put this in the good and average tier. I feel like I like it more than The Descent, which some people might gasp at. But we're talking about, when you talk about Paranormal Activity, most people are assuming, everything in the series. But I think the original Paranormal Activity is extremely effective. I remember, I think the first time I watched it, I want to say it was on Adults. They had it playing on Adult Swim for some reason. I don't really know, but I feel like I stayed up late one night. My internet was out, and all I had was cable, and so I had it on Adult Swim, and I could have swore they were playing Paranormal Activity, and that's where I seen it. I could be wrong. Might have been another channel, but I felt like that's where I watched it. Paranormal Activity has a really good setup. And the underlying story that it's telling you, which the sequels get into, I think they kind of cob it up and it sucks. But in the original story, it is interesting and makes you think, and kind of, by the end of the movie, you are kind of left, like, chilled. The movie is very chilling. I've come to realize that I prefer that kind of horror. Like, if a movie can, make me feel a little bit weird in my spine region, I'm more inclined to it. But, basic, synopsis, which I'm sure everybody knows. Just a home possession film. Weird ghost occurrences start happening. The husband and wife start being possessed, so they record their house to catch the occurrences. But of course there's more story about like why this is happening to them. Next up, we have The Taking of Deborah Logan. Now, for right now, I'm gonna put it into great. I feel like later on I could put it up into the best of the best. I really love this movie. I've rewatched it multiple times. Though me personally, I think it might be a little bit more scary for me because I personally don't like old people and they freak me out a little bit. I have some trauma in that area in my personal life, but I don't like old people, and I feel like this movie makes old people really, really scary. And I love I'm more inclined to, in this genre, I like the mockumentaries like format opposed to like I'm just gonna record this event and like trying to capture a ghost or to capture my findings kind of deal, because I feel like you have those two different styles in this subcategory. So with this being portrayed as like something real, at least at like the beginning of it, it's like, we're gonna document this case of like Alzheimer's and how it affects people, and seeing Deborah's gradual decline throughout the movie, and then getting the little snippets of like what's actually happening to her, because the Alzheimer's is like a red herring. But at the beginning of the movie, where you do genuinely think it is just like her Alzheimer's acting up, and that's what is causing her to act so strangely. And if you've ever had somebody in your life with Alzheimer's, they do some pretty crazy stuff that is kind of scary. So I mean, I think even if they never did bring in that supernatural kind of aspect in later, because that's the reveal, is that it's not actually Alzheimer's, it's supernatural shit that's causing her to do this stuff. If you just made it actually Alzheimer's like throughout the whole movie, it might actually still be just as scary. But I'm glad the movie goes the direction that it does. There is a nice progression, and I personally love stories that hide the cover over your eyes of more supernatural things and then reveals them to be true later, because it's cool to like have a vision of a world that is one way, and then to have it masterfully woven into like a reveal later. I feel like Berserk does that really well. Maybe not the supernatural way, but Attack on Titan does that pretty well. There's a lot of shows that do that, and when it's done well, it is very enjoyable. But anyways, I think for right now I'll put Deborah Logan right here into great. Next up, we got The Tunnel. Again, I think they are really there's a little bit of an oversaturation in the going into a dark place and monsters coming after you category in the found footage realm, because right now we already have 3, though I feel like The Tunnel is my favorite out of the bunch. It's a lower budget than both of these, and there's less like straight up, because of the lower budget, there's less like awesome effects and things like that. But I feel like The Tunnel definitely scared me more. The way that it's set up scares, and the atmosphere is just like immaculate. And you can watch it for free on YouTube, and if you haven't watched it, check it out. It's same premise as these two, except it's in Australia. A team of news people, I believe, go to the Sydney tunnels to. I think the news people are trying to figure out, like, they hear a conspiracy about like the homeless people living in the tunnels, or like what's happening to the homeless people in Sydney, like they might be disappearing, something like that. And so they go there to investigate. Monster happens in the dark tunnels of Sydney, and that's your premise. But it does execute it extremely well. I feel like I was scared throughout the majority of the movie, on edge, and I was more interested in it than the other entries. Hell House, it's classic. It's classic. I think majority of people would probably put it in like it's like one of the best ever. And I could see your opinion on that, and I would consider it valid, but also I feel like it's just great. I would probably do like this. It is good. It's scary. The story is really well told. It also does that same kind of thing that I was talking about with Deborah Logan, though the supernatural is a little bit more at the forefront from the beginning, because I mean you see it in the first, moments of the film. But the twist is very, very interesting by the end of the film, and it is led up to, and you're given enough details to where you could maybe reasonably make that decision yourself, and I love that kind of stuff. But the film itself is very, very scary. It's scary in this extremely subtle way that I enjoy. There are jump scares in the film, but the moments that are going to stick with you and make you the most paranoid, which I love, are going to be like the walking into a dark room and you see, Clown Boy standing in the corner of a dark room and it just deadpans on him for a little too long, that kind of stuff. And I feel like this movie excels extremely well at that. Basically, anything that's going to be in these top 2 tiers, you're going to know that. Like, if you watch these, you're going to have some hard time sleeping. So, next up we have Gonjiam Haunted Asylum. Now, I'm tempted to put it up here. It might later on, but I find this movie to be extremely effective. It's a Korean horror film, concept being that there's a bunch of like web streamers who go to haunted houses and make a deal about it. It's entertainment. They're obviously faking the things that happen at their attractions that they go to, but in the film, the latest one that they go to, actually terrifying supernatural stuff happens, which is surprising to them. But I think with talking about this, which I don't know if it's a wrong way of thinking, but in my opinion, Asian horror a lot of the times can be more effective to outsiders of it, because we just haven't really, you're less familiar with the tropes and you're not around the culture that has created that horror. So, like, a lot of the things that they do, in some ways, it is similar, and cultures borrow off of each other and things like that. But, certain things about Asian horror are definitely different than what we produce over here, and not being as exposed to it culturally can, a lot of the times, make it more effective. Though I have seen people with the opposite effect, where they talk about certain things that they do in Asian horror flicks being less effective and kind of silly. But for me, I consider them to be quite effective. So I'm gonna put it right here below the taking of Deborah Logan. Next up, we have Host. Now, I think the nicest thing that could be said about Host is that a lot of films are too scared to cut their movies short, and this film really, really does benefit from the pacing and the conciseness of this film. I think it's less than an hour long, and it only needs to be that long. They could have stretched it out another 20 minutes or whatever, but it would have really hurt the movie. But I think because of the shortness, it really does play towards its strength, because it is a very simple movie. Basically, it takes place during COVID, and a bunch of friends get together to have like a seance for like fun, and then they get possessed on camera, which I think later down on this list we got Unfriended somewhere, and I would consider this maybe the first one meh, the second one would be in trash, but this is very I'm really tempted to put it down here, but this is basically Unfriended but done 10 times better. And it's just a fun little short, effective little flick. It will scare you, but it's not like, amazing. I'd probably put it down here below The Descent. Next up, we have Grave Encounters. I feel like Grave Encounters is good and average. I did enjoy the first one quite a bit. Again, it's kind of similar to, it's almost like an American Gonjiam Haunted Asylum, but this is basically like a spoof on the ghost hunter, ghost adventure shows. The concept is, what if Zach Bagans went to a haunted location and actually dealt with supernatural entities instead of pretending that he is? Which I find it is actually funny, and it is scary at the same time. The second one, I feel like, goes for the humor aspect just a little too much. It's a little cringe, I'm gonna be honest. But the first one is pretty good. Now, The Bay. I did love The Bay. I love, again, it's a mockumentary about like this coastal town where people are experiencing transformations and negative effects on them, and it turns out to be a parasite that they're ingesting through the water in the town, and it's done really well. I find it really freaky. I enjoy it. I'd probably put it like right here below Hill House. Next up, we got the big boy, Blair Witch, not the originator of the genre. That would go to, I believe, Cannibal Holocaust, but the one that popularized it. And personally, this is gonna get me a lot of hate. It's gonna give me a lot of hate. I don't feel like, I feel like most people would be scared to not put it up here. And I'm not trying to be a contrarian. I do enjoy this movie. It is scary. It's got one of the best build-ups in just a horror movie, like, period. Like, the level of paranoia that the movie gives you based on, like, what's happening to them, with just so little effort, because I mean, really, the entire movie is just them walking around in the woods, like, talking about like how crazy they're going, and it does do it really well, and it is impressive. I would probably put it here at the bottom of great. But the issue for me is, see, there's always that argument, I am a believer of, like, the less is better. It's better probably sometimes to not show the monster, and it makes your imagination work on it. But I believe you should, like, at least, like, when I'm talking about that, though, is, like, not show them at all. I think you should show them, but just not, like, fully and, completely. You know what I mean? I feel like in the Blair Witch, they don't show you it at all. There is no Blair Witch. The scary scene, of course, is at the end when she walks down into the basement and sees her friend acting weird or whatever. But, it is extremely creepy. It is chilling, but I'm not going to lie, like, I was really disappointed. I felt like the payoff wasn't as satisfying as the build-up led it to have me believe it was going to be, and I was kind of disappointed at the end of it, especially with how much hype, like, the movie gets in the community. Before I watched it, I was like, this is going to be the best, I can't wait. And I honestly kind of came out of it feeling a little disappointed. I feel like it's probably right here in my eyes. Now, the sequel, the remake. The remake actually does deliver on what I complained about here. It has a higher production value. Basically just a remade tale of the original. I believe I think it's honestly kind of played like a sequel. I can't remember. It's been so long, but I just, obviously, worse than this one. I remember I don't even think I finished this one. I think I cut it off like halfway through because the dialogue in the film was making me cringe extremely hard. So I put it down. So I'm gonna put it down here. I don't know if it might belong in trash. I'm not exactly sure. We'll see later. Next up, we got Mr. Shyamalama Ding Dong, M. Night Shyamalan's found footage film, The Visit. I am quite a huge fan of The Visit, and I know people are very split. You see what I did there? People are very split on his films, but I am a huge enjoyer of M. Night Shyamalan. I love his storytelling, and I think he can be scary when he wants to be scary. And again, I kind of talked about Taking a Deborah Logan, but I do feel like The Visit is extremely enjoyable and really scary, and I love the concept. Again, spoilers, which you should come into a video like this expecting spoilers, but, it's about two kids that meet up with their grandparents. Like, they're dropped off by their parents, and their grandparents come and pick them up, moments later, and their grandparents start acting weird at the house, and these two kids have never actually met their grandparents before. And so, of course, the twist at the end of the horror film is that the people that they're staying with right now are not actually their grandparents. They're just a bunch of weirdos that come and picked them up and acted like they were their grandparents. So you actually get these cool little like snippets of the grandparents like trying to be evasive of, you know, the parents, right? So like there's a scene where the kids are calling their parents, you know, to check up on them because they're like spending the whatever it is, like the week or the summer with their grandparents. But like the grandparents don't want to get into the shot, don't want to say hi to the parents because they know that they're not actually these kids' grandparents, and they don't want the parents to find out. But the movie also isn't like upfront to the viewer about this either, so it's like a cool little veil over the viewer's eyes, and I really enjoy that. But it's also like it's fun too. It's not so scary like with a lot of M. Night's movies. You know, it is fun. It's like a fun horror movie, but it is scary at the same time. Like I don't want to compare it to something like Evil Dead, but it's not full on like horror comedy, but it is like horror, kind of like some fun stuff in it. You know what I mean? But like in terms of like its actual scariness, I would say this movie's probably like down here. But this is just like my pure baseline enjoyment of the film. I would probably put it somewhere like here. Since I just realized I skipped Rec and Quarantine, these movies are absolute bangers. I've watched both of them. I think you can watch the American version, which is Quarantine, or the Mexican version, which is Rec. I think it's kind of like The Ring. You're golden. You know, doesn't matter which version that you watch. They're both really good. I think a lot of people prefer the original because it's the original, and I understand that. I'm kind of undecided. I feel like they're so similar. Like the remake of Rec, which is the American version, is to the T like identical to the original, you know, that both of them are the same amount of effective to me. And so at that point where they are so similar, I would prefer to watch Quarantine just because it's in my own language and it's an easier watch. So, but I could see people liking Rec more. You know, it is the original. I mean, I think I've seen videos of people talking about like the slight differences in them, but really, I mean, you're golden either way. Zombies in a hotel is the synopsis, and people don't know that it's zombies at the start of the film. You know, they just think there's like a huge disaster going on. They rush into a hotel, they lock themselves in, Dead Rising style, and zombie shenanigans ensue. But it's probably the best found footage zombie film. Debatably, it's really good. See, I'm probably like this with it, to be honest. I'm probably just gonna get rid of Quarantine because just to make the list shorter, they're the same movie. But yeah, I think right now these four could probably go up to best of the best, but we're gonna see where we are. We'll rearrange at the end. Next up, we have Afflicted. Again, I've not seen it. It is on my backlog of movies to watch, though. I have heard really good things about it. What I do know about it, it's like a vampire found footage flick. I just have not took the plunge and actually went to watch it yet. The Borderlands. Now, I was a fan of the Borderlands. I found it to be quite good. I think I might move this down here. Borderlands is quite good. It's quite good. Basically, there's miracles happening in some church, and they send the Vatican sends a group of like religious people to go out and see if they can capture it on camera, and they do end up capturing it on camera, and it is really good. The ending, it's probably one of my favorite endings in a found footage movie. Like, I remember watching it and just being like stunned by it. I loved it. I feel like for me, it's probably like right here. And if you haven't watched it, go check it out. I'm a fan of, I know it's really overplayed, but I'm a fan of like religious horror, and I think this movie does it quite well. Next up, we have Incantation. Now, again, this is a movie that I need to watch. I need to watch it. I actually watched a quarter of it and then fell asleep, which I'm not gonna blame the movie for. I've never got around to rewatching it, but from the quarter that I watched, it was pretty good, and I've heard really good things about it. But because I haven't watched it completely, or at least not enough to really make a strong opinion about, I'm going to put it in haven't seen. Next up, we have The Fourth Kind, Alien movie. I love Alien movies, and because of that, even though I know this movie is bad, but because I love Alien stuff, I did enjoy it more than the average person, but I do think it would be dishonest for me to put it anywhere above trash. It's pretty bad, but I had more enjoyment out of it just because personally I love alien flicks. Next up we have, I think, probably the worst movie I see on this list. Devil's Pass is absolute dog water garbage. Not worth your time. The build-up's interesting. But that's the thing with found footage. It's easy to kind of build intrigue in this format, to be honest. But the payoff, the CGI is so abhorrent. And I get they had a lower budget, but it's like, if you have a lower budget, don't use garbage CGI. I mean, it literally, like, if I would rather, and you could argue this is the reason why a movie like Blair Witch doesn't show you the witch. If they showed you the witch, it would probably look like the monsters in Devil's Pass, and it would destroy the movie. So maybe it should have, fell under that Blair Witch kind of style of thinking, and maybe it wouldn't be so low. But the CGI is abhorrent and will make you laugh. It's that bad. We have Cloverfield. I think everyone knows Cloverfield. It was like the hit. It was like the second Blair Witch. But I wouldn't even consider it it is a found footage movie, but I wouldn't consider it horror. It did not scare me whatsoever. Which, like, you could call it horror, but I didn't find it very effective at all. I thought the movie was fine. Thought it was good, but I was not scared for a second in this movie, so I can't put it above meh. Next up we have The Last Exorcism. Again, this is another really, like, short, kind of concise horror movie, but, with not a whole lot of plot, but just the scares and the scenes and the acting is just extremely effective. It freaked me the fuck out, and I loved it. I've got to put it up here. I think I do like it more than Hell House. Another, like, religious movie. It's got a cool concept, though. It's this preacher who's also a charlatan. He, like, scams people by giving them, exorcisms, because he doesn't really believe in the power of exorcism himself. And so, of course, this movie is, he's kind of feeling guilty about him faking this and scamming people, and so he wants to expose the whole trade of, like, fake exorcism. So he sets up, like, how he does his, these fake exorcisms. But so happens to be that the case that he goes to film him doing a fake exorcism, it actually ends up being a real exorcism, a real possession. And he starts freaking out and, so on. I think it's extremely good. I think at this point, I'm going to move some up, too. I feel like these deserve to probably be up here. Debatably my favorite found footage horror movie. I think it deserves to be in best of the best. Now, I think in terms of straight up scariness, this film isn't as effective as, probably, like, up to, like, here, in my opinion. So it would be, like, here in terms of, like, the level of fear that I felt watching it. But the story and the, because it's in a perspective of, there's this girl that went missing. It takes place in Australia. And, they're taking a documentary, like, on her life and the grief of her family and the strange occurrences that are happening after, post-mortem. There's some, I don't want to spoil this one if you haven't watched it, which I'm sure if you're watching my video, you've watched other horror content creators, and they talk very highly of this movie. I think that's all you really need to know. You will watch this movie and your jaw will drop onto the floor with the things that happen in it, and when a certain scene happens, it will, like, literally, like, your whole body will run cold. It's a very creepy movie, but not outright, like, scary, like something like Deborah, Logan, or, like Hell House, or, definitely check out Lake Mungo. It's not, I wouldn't say it's for everybody, but if you can, like, stick through, like, the slower beginning of it, the payoff is immaculate. Except we have Creep. Love Creep. Creep deserves to be in the best of the best as well. I think for me, for right now, it would probably go something like this. Creep, again, is another, like, fun movie, kind of like The Visit is. I would say it's probably a little bit more fun than The Visit. But it is genuinely super, like, I don't know how to explain it. It's almost like someone used the feeling of awkwardness and cringe to cause horror, and it's really creative and really fun. Basically, there's a videographer who gets a job on like Craigslist or something to go do this film project for this guy. And this guy is like telling him that he's got a brain tumor and he wants this, just a videotape of his life for his unborn child, before he dies of cancer. But that turns out to be a lie, and it turns out that this guy is just a fucking weirdo that wants to be a weirdo. Hence the name Creep. And it's an experience. The first time you watch this movie, I freaking loved it, man. You have to watch it. The actor, the actor that plays like the antagonist in the film, I'm pretty sure is the same guy that directed the movie, and it's like just a two-man show really, but just with like no effects and just acting and like very simple like camera work. They make this guy like fucking horrifying, and he's just so entertaining to watch the whole time, man. Like, this movie is a gem. It's an absolute gem. It might be above like Mungo. I freaking love it. Willow Creek, I have watched it. I would liken it. It's Blair Witch, but with Bigfoot instead. A lot of people give it high praise. It has high ratings. I'm not too much of a fan of it, to be honest. I thought it was really boring. I was like, I've seen Blair Witch do this. Not really interested. I did watch it all the way to the end, and I was really, to be honest, I was really unimpressed by it. I'd probably put it down here. That might piss off a lot of people. I've heard good things. People really do enjoy this movie, but I personally don't see it. Next up we have this is the scariest movie on the list in terms of pure like fear factor. This movie, and it's hard to scare me current day because I just watch so much of the medium and I'm so into it. But this movie is a movie that I kind of like refuse to rewatch because of how bad it got to me. Because it is portrayed in it, like when you watch this film, you like almost legitimately think you're watching a snuff film. It's like that kind of realistic and believable. But basically, it's about police officers who find a big box of like hundreds of tapes of a murderer's recording of his different murders and how he just set up kills and how he disposes of the bodies, and it's made in this true crime sort of way, where it's like them trying to dissect this guy's videos and figure out who he is and chase him down and stuff. But it's really gruesome. It's really effective, especially like the scene, like you get scenes of his videotapes that he's taken of him, recording. It's from the killer's perspective and him going into these people's houses and disposing of them. It's quite good, but it's not like, I wouldn't say it's like just pure like gore porn or something like that. Like, it's more, I find just the idea and the way that the killer portrays himself, and the fact that there really are fucked up people like him in the real world, and how honestly it portrays like a disgusting serial killer. Like, that's really the true fear in this movie, because really the gore isn't like insane. You see something worse in a lot of like higher budget horror films, but this movie will get you gooses, man. And I'm really like torn about whether or not, like, I enjoy Lake Mungo more, but this is definitely like the scariest film on the entire list. So I'll leave it at that. Again, we're at haven't seen, but I can't remember if it's absolute trash or just meh. But I do remember this movie being so uninteresting that I know I've watched it, but I couldn't even tell you the plot off the top of my head right now. So it's going into meh. So we have The Sacrament. The Sacrament is really good. Again, I wouldn't say it's even really like scary. It's more like a thriller, but it is very enjoyable. I think it's good. I'd probably put it in good and average. It's about it's like a one-for-one recreation of the Jamestown massacre that genuinely happened in real life, where like a cult, the cult leader, sets up a commune, and at the end of it, he makes all of his followers drink poisonous Kool-Aid to escape the authorities. And it's set up in a way where but it's basically like a dramatized found footage take of, it's like, what if a reporter went into the commune before all the crazy shit happened and recorded what it was like and got it on film. and I think it does a pretty good job at it. It is a good, like, thriller found footage horror movie. I wouldn't say it's scary. The House is October Bill. This movie, I as well kind of feel like it's middle of the road. I do remember the movie, and I do remember finding it decently effective. I know, like the first time I seen the movie, I was like, oh, is this like a Hell House ripoff or something? And it which I think this movie actually was made before Hell House, so. But they're very similar. They're both about, like, haunted houses. But the thing with this one is that the people that are filming are people that want to find, like, the most extreme haunts, kind of like, McCamey Manor in, like, the real world. They want to find extreme haunts, and they do eventually find themselves taking place in an extreme haunt. And it's like, what if the people at McCamey Manor, you escaped from them and they chased you down, and you were just filming it the entire time. That's kind of what this movie is, and it's good. Next up, we have Butterfly Kisses. I feel like this is a hidden gem. I feel like most people haven't seen this found footage movie, but I think it is well worth the watch. I love this movie. I think it's extremely effective. It's like if you took the concept of the Doctor Who Weeping Angels and turned it into a monster, and showed the effects of what it's really like, because if you've never watched it, Doctor Who or this, it's kind of like, every time you blink, the monster gets closer. Like, you have to be looking at the monster for it to, stay put. It's basically like, what if that thing existed and was coming after you, and you documented the psychological effects of what not blinking and the paranoia of something coming to get you does to you. It's kind of like that little hypothetical people have where they're like, you get $1 million, but a snail is chasing you for the rest of your life, and if it touches you, you die, kind of thing. It's a really cool exploration of, like, paranoia. The Gallows. Sadly, I have wasted time watching The Gallows again. It might be worse than Devil Pass. I don't know which one is worse, but they're both absolute dog water. Do not watch these movies. Troll Hunter, again. This is a movie that I have not seen, but I've heard pretty good things about it. It's on my backlog. But I do kind of put off watching it just because the concept of the movie doesn't really intrigue me. But apparently, based on what people have said, it is done very, very well. Next up, we have Shudder original Deadstream. This movie, I believe, goes into best of the best. Super fun movie. Now, like what I was saying with The Visit or like with Creep, I kind of alluded to it, like almost kind of like in that fun way that Evil Dead is, it's like fun, scary. Deadstream literally is like if you made Evil Dead but made it found footage kind of deal. Not completely like one for one, but like just the vibe of Evil Dead is definitely, like, they definitely used it as a strong inspiration in this film. Like, this movie is so scary and fun to watch all the way through, and it's just a blast. It's basically like Gonjiam Haunted Asylum in a way. It's like take an IRL streamer, someone like Ice Poseidon. He's like really hated in the community, and he thinks like, oh, this is how I'm gonna win back, the love of the people. I'm gonna go to a haunted house and force myself to stay in it, do this crazy, like, video, kind of like a Mr. Beast or something, and actual haunting and possession occurs, and he has to fight off demons and stuff. But it's actually, even though it is so, like, high energy and, like, funny at times, the moments of fear and tension and actual scares are effective, which is really cool. I think I probably put it like here. I think I like it more than Wreck. Next up, we have a real creepy one in the same kind of way that the Poughkeepsie Tapes is scary. This one is really, really scary. A very odd concept, but I think the oddity of it almost like lends to the believability of the movie, which I feel like that's kind of where found footage is at its best. Because the whole thing that found footage is trying to do to you, and why it does end up being effective to you, in my opinion, is how believable it is. Of course, like, an adult knows Like when we watch one of these movies, it is just, a story. It is being told in this way, theatrically. But still, though, a good found footage movie can trick us into thinking that, even for a moment, like this is believable, or at the very least that we could see this actually happening, and that immersion and like realness, like edge to the movie, adds to the effectiveness and the fun of a found footage movie. Like we can put ourselves in that, disbelief that, oh, this is like really happening. And this movie does that extremely well, and it's extremely scary. Concept being, this dude is obsessed with real life actress Anne Hathaway, and he is kidnapping and killing girls and making them star in his snuff films so that he can create this amalgamation of his messed up movies and send it to Anne Hathaway to convince her of his love and to get her to star in his movie. So very weird high concept movie, but really effective. But I think I'm not the hugest fan. I don't think I'd ever rewatch it. And I did find it scary, but I feel like it's just kind of a worse Poughkeepsie Tapes. Next we have The Pyramid. Garbage. Trash. Do not watch. Hollywood schlock. Not worth your time. Never watch it. Next up we have Megan is Missing. Again, kind of like this, but as well, I also just, it's going for the same thing. It's like showing real life, like what if we had evidence of, in a true crime sort of way of, what happened to a set of missing girls, But I just feel like the Poughkeepsie Tapes just does the feeling of Megan is Missing so much more, but there is, like, in terms of scariness, I'd have it's probably something like this. This is probably like the scariness rating of the film, at least the top 4, like the Poughkeepsie Tapes is like probably up here. And then, yeah. The movie is extremely terrifying and disturbing because of the dark subject matter of like the murdering of like 2 young girls. And there's like, I think the penultimate moment of this movie is when like they first show you the photos of their abductions and stuff. Like that is, and he's like the guy's got him in torture devices. Like that is like you'll close your eyes. It like messes with you so much, which I can appreciate. But also I feel like it's pretty exploitative in a bad way, and it's not. Which I mean, you could say the same. I'm not dissing it for it, but I do believe that it's kind of just like shock for shock's sake. When I feel opposite about the Poughkeepsie Tapes. I feel like this is actually done for the purpose of, like there's more to it than just being there for like pure shock value. There's more to it than that. So I would probably put it down here. I think I might like it a little bit more than Be My Cat though. But just to be clear, I do find this more terrifying than like all of them. I just don't. In terms of them as movies as whole, I don't know if I don't believe this movie deserves to be like above Creep or the majority of these. Next up we have Area 51, Garbage, Apollo 18. This movie is alright. It's not bad. I think this is like a good definition of a meh movie. Found footage on the moon. They run into rock spiders. It's pretty cool. It's effective in some parts, but it's nothing that's like, like awesome, like made me really excited. Like by the end of the movie, I had a bunch of cool thoughts about it. It's pretty, yeah. Next up we have Spree. Basically it's almost like Deadstream, but taken in a different direction. It's like an IRL streamer who's willing to do anything for views, which includes murder. It's more on the funny side. I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I wouldn't say it's a bad movie. It's probably like better made than like honestly the majority of these movies, but I just wasn't the hugest fan of it. So I'd probably put it in good and average. Next up we have the VHS series. Now each of these are obviously way different because if you know about VHS, they're basically every movie is just a collection of multiple horror shorts, and some movies are going to be carried by like 1 or 2 shorts and some aren't. But I think for this list, I feel like there's so much to be talked about in the series that it deserves its own video, and there are videos of people ranking their specific shorts in the entire series. So I'll just list my favorite. 94 is my favorite one. I think my second favorite would probably be VHS 2. As a total, this will be a ranking of the entire series. I love VHS. I think they're great. Like I said, it's hit or miss. It depends on, the specific short. Every film has like 4 or 5 different shorts in them. So, but I'd probably put it in great. Next up, we have Noroi the Curse. Now, this is best of the best. If Gonjiam Haunted Asylum is up here, it's another Asian horror flick. Noroi deserves to be above that, in my opinion. I think I might do something like this here. God, like Mungo being that low is a crime. Basically, investigators who investigate supernatural happenings in Japan, and he finds psychics who can kind of inform him on what's really going on, and they eventually do find out what the cause is, and it leads to very disturbing, unsettling scenes, and this movie literally shook me to my core. And this director, he has other good horror films as well. After watching this, I was like, man, I gotta check out his other films, and they're pretty good too, but none of them are as well done as Noroi the Curse. So definitely, if you like Asian horror, like you like The Ring, maybe you've watched Gonjiam Haunted Asylum, definitely check this out. And I'm always on the look. If you know of any really good Asian horror flicks, let me know. I'm a huge fan of them. So we have Dash Cam, basically MAGA, IRL, a very weird concept. Trump supporter IRL streamer transports a old lady, and the old lady is messed up. I personally I thought the movie was really fun, and I did actually think it was scary. It's a very just fun movie to rent one night and watch. It's not a masterpiece or anything, but I think it's worth the watch. This is definitely a very enjoyable experience for me. I found it really funny and entertaining. Probably somewhere here. Horror in the High Desert. Again, this is probably something like a Lake Mungo, but I kind of felt like it's Lake Mungo, but not as good. Or like Blair, it's very slow burn, and it does it pretty well. I enjoyed my experience with it. I think you're either going to get so bored with the movie and turn it off before you get to the payoff, or you're going to enjoy that build up and then enjoy the payoff. And I feel like it does it quite well. I just don't think it's probably as good as the rest of these. I'd probably put it here. And next up we have, if I had to say, I think this is probably my favorite found footage horror movie. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. The concept's really cool. I want to say it's the scariest here. The scariest would definitely be the Poughkeepsie Tapes, but I think I just really love the movie and I love the concept. So basically, the main character of the film is the director of the actual film. There's some meta shenanigans going on there, and he's playing his real life self as a horror filmmaker. But this time, he's gonna go out and try to see if he can find real world monsters. And he eventually does find a real world monsters, and it's really fun, and it's really the one scene at the end with the monster in the tree, if you know what I'm talking about. It's very, very cool. I love this movie. I think it's probably my favorite found footage horror movie. Next we have Savage Land. Now I just watched this last night because I remember watching it a while ago and really enjoying it, but I wanted to make sure my memory was refreshed on it. This movie is really, really well done and really terrifying in the way that, again, Lake Mungo is. But I think it's very unique in the way that it's told. Films like the Poughkeepsie Tapes or Megan is Missing is kind of told through this true crime lens, mockumentary type style of storytelling, which I actually enjoy quite well. But this one is done super believably. If you showed this movie to somebody and you didn't tell them, and they knew nothing about it, and you didn't tell them that this was a found footage horror movie, for at least for the first half of it, they would believe that this is a true thing that actually occurred, and this was a true case that was happening, which really does lend to how well the story was told and how believably it was told, which really enhances it. Like when that veil is like, you know, unlifted from you and you realize like, oh shit, this is like a zombie movie, you know, it's like super, super cool and really, really effective. So, I mean, I'd probably put it up here. I think it's really, really well done. If you haven't watched it, you need to watch it. Best, most fun experience. Watch it with somebody who, and don't tell them that it's not a horror movie. Next up, we have The Last Broadcast. Which I just realized Cannibal Holocaust isn't even on here. If Cannibal Holocaust was on here, I'd probably rank it in the meh. I don't vibe with that movie based on what it's done to actual animals. I think it's fucked up. But The Last Broadcast is one of the first horror movies, found footage horror movies. I think it's something like oh shit! And I just realized that the one Alien, the older Alien found footage horror movie isn't on here either. The McPherson tapes or something. That one was good. I like that one. I forgot to add it, but I'd probably put the McPherson tapes in good and average. And I'd probably put Cannibal Holocaust in trash. But The Last Broadcast is kind of like a little bit like the Poughkeepsie Tapes in a way. But not really. It's like this guy who is just recording his murders and killings and such. Find it to be decently effective, but nothing like extraordinary. It's like, if I'm gonna watch a movie like this, I'd rather watch a more effective version of it. But for its time and it being I do think it's probably more effective than the Blair Witch Project for me, but I think I just like it more. So I'll probably put it down, I'd say, like, right somewhere in here. And so now I'm going to reorganize and get it to a place that I am happy with. Something like this. Cloverfield, I feel bad putting it down here, but it's like, it's genuinely how I feel about the movie. Like, I can't lie. I'd probably put it above these movies. Again, I feel bad with this too, because so many people love this movie, but I just don't. I don't really get it, to be honest with you. This probably does not need to be up here. I think we can put it up here. This needs to be below that. That probably needs to be below that. This can probably like go back here. God, I feel like out of all these movies, I think I need to start from the top to the back. I think The Tunnel is my favorite out of like all the movies in here. I think The Tunnel is my favorite, and then I would probably say it goes Paranormal Activity, The Descent. Oh, I think I like Grave Encounters more. Yeah, this is probably pretty good. Might put this up here. Then here, my great category. Which one of these are my favorite out of all of these? I would say probably The Last Exorcism I had the most fun with. And then Hell House, Borderlands, The Visit. I feel like this is extremely accurate to how I feel. And this is what I debate. It's like, God, probably something like this. Fucking Noroi, man. It's so hard to pick, because I love them all. I think I like Butterfly Kisses a little bit more. I think this is it, boys. I think this is the list. See if I've missed anything. Make sure. I think this is my list. And now, if I'm missing any big ones that I'm just not realizing it right now, let me know. If you have any suggestions of found footage horror movies that you believe that I would enjoy, please recommend them in the comments below. Let me know. I love them. I'm always looking for them. I'm going through subreddits trying to find ones that I haven't seen already that aren't complete dog water. And I'm always looking for those hidden gems, man. I love found footage horror movies. But I hope you At least respect my list. I feel like it's, it's obviously heavily personalized, and your opinion's gonna be different. But if you have any egregious thoughts about where I've placed some of these, let me know. And as always, thanks for watching, and take it easy.